We are pulling our hair out, trying to keep our heads above water. We are the proverbial one-legged man in a you-know-what kicking contest. It is chaos. But yes, we are the crew of Implicit Bias Radio, and we are back on the air again. Now, we've been burning the candle at both ends, double fisting the elixir of freedom, which you might just call it our weekly whiskey. So it's about time that you join us for a break from the demands of work, of social obligations that often have us feeling overwhelmed and exhausted. Yes, we need rest. That is the principle that we're going to work on today. It's really first introduced to us in, that 2,000-year-old book, in maybe the first, chapters where it says by the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all of his work. Look, don't get us tired, right? I mean, he don't get us wrong either. He was setting an example for us to follow because we know God doesn't get tired. It did, though, signify the importance of taking time to rest and rejuvenate. Rest is actually a common concept throughout the Bible, emphasized even in the Ten Commandments. Exodus instructs us, 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath day for your Lord God. On it you shall not do any work. In other words, it's actually important for us to set aside a specific day for rest and for him, allowing us to reconnect with God and recharge our spirits, so to speak. And rest is not only a physical necessity, it's also a spiritual one. Jesus even invites us to take time off. He emphasizes the importance of rest for our souls. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. We're reminded that true rest can only be found in God. Or maybe it's put a little differently, that in rest, that's when we actually find God. We can place our burdens on him. We can experience a deep sense of peace and rest that transcends physical exhaustion. Also, in rest, we are taught to stop what we're doing, and trust in what God is doing for us. God can, after all, part seas, deliver slaves from bondage. God provided manna for the Israelites. All of these things can be done for us. But sometimes we have to stop trying to do things our way and rest and let him do things in his. Whatever it is that needs to be done, sometimes when we rest, God just finds a way to provide. He'll work through others. He'll work in ways we don't understand. But this is how we're actually supposed to live. The crew of Implicit Bias highly doubts that God's plan for us was to work seemingly endless days for companies that will downsize you in a heartbeat. And the second you make too much money or you've outlived your usefulness, they just want to get rid of you. No. God wants us to truly be content. And that requires that we rest. Not just from the tasks that we need to do daily for the people we truly work for, family or friends. So get some rest. Do it with us. The crew of Implicit Bias Radio is back, and it's a vital aspect of our spiritual and physical well-being that we do this. So cheers. We're going to follow God's example, setting aside time for rest. We're going to experience renewal, rejuvenation. It's not just time away from work, but a time to reconnect with him, to reflect on our blessings, and find true rest for all of our souls. It should be a priority. It is here in the TSPL. So that is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to get ready to rest by solving the problems of the world, talking about all the things we're not supposed to discuss in polite conversation, and we're going to do it with whiskey in hand, sampling weekly whiskeys, and hopefully you'll join us as we find some comfort, some solace, some rest on this week's episode of Implicit Bias Radio. We'll be right back. Implicit Bias Radio back on the air. I'm your host, Kavan Bordelon. We are in the Mr. Lester's top secret podcast lair located somewhere in downtown Lafayette, Louisiana. Let me introduce you to the crew before we get to our weekly whiskey. At the bar, on your right, He is Rene Girard, Louisiana's only certified master tobacconist. Rene, you gonna have a cigar for us this week?
I definitely have a cigar this week.
Outstanding.
I've had several already today, but I will have one for the cigar of the month.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because that's what we were referencing. I know you go through about 6 or 7 cigars a day.
At least.
At least, yes. Sitting next to him, who is, since Rene has 6 or 7 cigars a day, Grant is experiencing having a cigar right now. He is Grant Galatas, K&B of William S. Nacall Jewelers. Mr. Galatas, good to have you back.
Good to be here, guys. It's a nice little, when the wind hits it just right, a little bit of tobacco aroma comes off of that.
There you go.
And just wishes this way.
The wafting of the cigar,
That's
right?
correct. I can enjoy it without actually enjoying it.
Which I'm going to pick on Rene as we get a little later in the show, because I attempted to do that the last time we were at Mr. Lester's. And Rene knows my palate, and I think Rene thought that it was going to be funny, giving me what he gave me, because I asked for it. I know. I asked for it.
It was a cigar we talked about.
It was.
I just brought you a shorter one because I knew how it was going to affect you.
When Caleb says, "Ooh, this is spicy," and Caleb smokes cigars all the time, I'm like, oh my goodness. Speaking of Caleb, the tan, the myth, the legend has returned. And yes, he begged for us to call him that before this segment. Oh, no.
I said I'm under my molting. There he is.
You said, look who's showing up underneath. That's what you said.
Lotion on its skin.
The Rustic Renegade is back with us. He's back from vacation. Hopefully you got some well-deserved time away.
I did. I got to relax a little bit. The wife and I went snorkeling. I learned that if you're going to climb a float, like with the ropes and all that stuff on it, and you're my size, you need a counterweight.
Not like a Mardi Gras float.
No. That one wouldn't tip over. But the ones in the water, counterweight is necessary.
Counterweight is necessary. Okay, so speaking of counterweight, we last week had an absolute heavyweight of a whiskey with the Buzzard's Roost Toasted Barrel. Came in well over 100 proof, great caramel, great toasted marshmallow, and it rated as a blue here on Implicit Bias. And we'll go back over the Morse whiskey rating code here on the show. Yes, but you know what? It rated that, it counted. This week, we are still sticking with Buzzard's Roost, but this week, we have the Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey Cask Strength from Buzzard's Roost. So, that being said, I'm curious to hear what some of us here on Implicit Bias have to think about this. Caleb, we're going to come to you last because I'm going to give you a compliment. I don't want to do it, and I'm just going to wait. Let's go to the bar first. Rene, the microphone's pointing towards you.
Not one of my favorites now. I know.
Look,
I've gotten to be a wimpy over the last few weeks.
Sam, rest in peace. By the way, he's not really dead. But Sam, who is no longer with the show, was our whiskey snob. You are very quickly turning into the Implicit Bias whiskey snob. You don't like anything anymore.
No, I mean, there's things, I guess I just got used to lesser proofs. I like the sweetness that comes out of a lesser proof. This one I would put at 110.
No, this one's 115.
Oh, okay. And I've just come to really appreciate 100 and less proofs. At the shop, we've been drinking some Elijah Craig's and Mellick. I love JT Mellick, and it's a 94 proof. And I just get more sweetness. This stuff, I'm not getting a lot of sweetness out of. And I guess I've become a whiskey snob. You created this.
Yeah, I did.
I was a beer guy. You made me a whiskey snob.
Yeah, but here's the crazy part. We should have made you a whiskey snob for good whiskey. Right. We made you a whiskey snob for crap whiskey. No, I'm kidding. There are some really good whiskeys under 107 to 105 proof. There are.
Yes, it's not rocket fuel, but they are some great whiskeys.
Yeah, there are. Proof. There are. Okay, so let's go to the other person at the bar, K&B, Kennebra, Grant Galatas of William S. Nacall. So Grant, the other Buzzard's Roost made it into Deep Blue, the Implicit Bias Infinity bottle sitting in front of you, which came from William S. Nacallers. William S. Nacall's. I'm curious if this one is going in as well.
Well, it got me wanting to taste the one from last week because this one is just fantastic. I do pick up the sweet. It does list as vanilla. I'm getting a little bit of citrus out of it on the nose and on the palate. So I've grown to like the 110 to 120 proofs, and this is right in the middle of that. This is right in my wheelhouse. It checks all the boxes for me.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. This one's fantastic. I want to taste the one from last week.
And what's funny is you used to not be that higher proof guy. Like 115, you're like, oh my God,
Right.
it's too much. Now
It was a break-in period. I'm at my purple belt right around.
Okay,
now. I
yeah,
got a
okay.
couple of belts to catch up, but it's a dangerous bottle for me because if I've had a bad day, I would get a bottle of this and half of it would be gone by the time the evening is done. Just because all of the flavors are right there on the nose, on the palate, everything just in my wheelhouse.
we have a saying on this show, bourbon, bourbony, McBourbon. And to me, this is right in that wheelhouse. Every note that you would expect from a really good bourbon, you get on this. You get great proof. You get great caramel. I actually like that you said citrus because I initially didn't quite pick it up, but as I hit the nose again, I do get that. I'm wondering, and to me, it would almost be sacrilege to do it, but it's not. I'm wondering how good this would be in an old fashioned, where the citrus here would play off the orange in the old fashioned. I mean, this to me, like you, hits all the notes. Speaking of hitting all the notes, especially those of a soprano, we've got Walker in the corner. So Walker, I'm curious, as you have your first tasting of this Buzzard's Roost, last time that Renee poo-pooed on a whiskey, I went straight to you because I thought I knew kind of where your flavor profile would hit. I think I know again. I'm curious. Do you like this one as much as I think you do?
Yes, I really do enjoy this one. I get that heavy caramel, vanilla. It's good. It's the same one as we had last week. Not the same one, but like the same brand.
It's the same label, correct. It's the same, and it's not necessarily a distiller, but it is the same brand. That's a great call out.
The one we had last week was, I feel like that one was more like kind of refreshing.
Okay.
I think that's what I said last week, but this one I do really, really enjoy.
I'm glad that you do because I'm with you on this one, and I love because Walker was also, Renee, a beer drinker. He was not a whiskey drinker. Well, let me rephrase that. He's 22 years old. He drank whatever he got for free.
No, and he wasn't a beer drinker because all he drank was light beers and ultra lights, and that's not beer. That's
Oh, no.
water.
Look at that mustache. We need to get that mustache on camera. That mustache screams, I drink heavy IPA. That's what it screams.
No, that
No.
says champagne of beers.
Not even some champagne of beers.
All right. So we've got a couple of reviews on it, and this is the compliment that I don't want to get because he wasn't here last week. We missed it, Caleb. We missed the Caleb Morse whiskey description that has become so unique to you on this show.
You mean someone else couldn't try?
Well, I can, but it's like when we would do a Kamala Harris impersonation or a Kamala Harris impersonation, right? It was like pure gibberish when it came out. It was, oh, this smells like the barley that fell off of the side of the truck on the eastern side of the road, somewhere near Murfreesboro, Tennessee, on the north-south side of it, not the east-west side of it, but only in the spring. I mean, no, it's not right.
Well, and you were trying to get Trammell to say the word, and he would not say it.
He would not say donkey whiskey. No.
He would not.
Oh.
And he said he couldn't believe it, that he was actually brought in at the last minute. It had to be somebody else because he's never on shows with good whiskeys.
Yeah, he thought it was going to be a donkey whiskey, and it certainly was not. So,
If it was
Caleb,
anything like this, it sure isn't.
it is close to this, not too far off. I'll tell you what I think is the difference, and I know Grant has that bottle right in front of him, and it's between you and Grant. So I know y'all will get a taste of that.
Well, I
in a
should have
minute.
had that for my second glass.
So I'm curious, what are you getting off of this one?
So on the nose, I mean, you get caramel. I get cracked black pepper, and then I can't put my finger on this the finish on the nose. I wrote possibly flat Dr. Pepper. That's literally I wrote possibly flat because it's definitely not carbonated. It has that little to it. On the palate, this is where it comes in. I was talking to my mother about like things that I enjoyed and she enjoyed whenever I was young. And she was talking about her favorite candy. And she's like, I loved cow tails as a kid. And I'm like, cow tails? They were around when you were a kid? She's like, you don't remember eating cow tails with me? I'm like, no, I don't think I ever ate a cow tail. And then I had one yesterday because of that. And I get that, not caramel, it's like a caramelly vanilla.
Yes,
It's more vanilla than caramel.
I know what you mean.
So that I get like a cow tail out of this. It's subtle, not really subtle, but it's long, drawn out, the naturally sweet vanilla. That's what I get on the front. Then I get cracked black pepper. Then I get, for Renee, like fresh, dried tobacco leaf. Like almost like a non-mixed pipe tobacco. I get that in the middle of the palate. And then on the finish, I tried making wine years ago. And I was good at it. I did better with, I can't think of the word now. It's a honey liquor.
Mead?
Mead. I did better with mead. But I tried a Satsuma wine, and it was not great. And on the finish, I get like a Satsuma type citrus. Not a Satsuma wine, but a Satsuma type finish, where it's thin, it's clean, but it's lingering. It's not overpowering. It's not abrupt. It's not there. It's like a hint.
So I know what I get off of this that I couldn't quite place, and I think this puts it into maybe perspective, and it's going to fit between yours, Caleb, and Grant, your description. Have you ever had the chocolate oranges? It's shaped like an orange. It's chocolate, and you have to slam it down on the table so it separates, and it's like orange slices, but it's chocolate, and it's
They still make
chocolate.
those?
Yeah, they do, and it's chocolate that has orange flavoring in it, and that's what I almost get that here.
Yeah.
So you almost get a chocolatey flavor here with that orange citrus tinge to it, and the finish is long.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
How much it draws out because it finishes neatly, and it's not like this overpowering flavor, but it just drags it out, and not to where it's that uncomfortable where you're like, oh, he's still talking, but it's like it's still there, right?
Yeah, the finish on it is so long. It's not like wake up the next morning and go, they're still here. The finish on it is so long. It's like, oh, they're still here. Yeah, that's where this finish lands for me. It just is that good. It is done that well. It is that satisfying, to complete the metaphor.
I love how you talked about satisfying because I don't know if the people on the camera can see this. And earlier I said The Simpsons, but I was wrong. You ever watched Family Guy?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Walker does look like the guy from Family Guy.
Well, yes, but not Peter Griffin.
No, I know the one you're talking about.
Bruce.
Yes.
Bruce with the earring and the blue jean shorts.
The jorts.
Yeah.
Those are not blue jean
That's
shorts.
great. If anyone knows who he's talking about, that is great.
That's where I am today.
All right, Grant, you wanted to chime in.
All right, the official online breakdown. Burst of sweetness, flavors of vanilla and coconut at the mid palate. Sweetness is beautifully balanced by rich notes of maraschino, cherry, and citrus. Like you said earlier, making
Old-fashioned.
an excellent choice for an old fashioned.
This just absolutely hits that flavor profile
So
for
as
me.
usual, yellow spot on it.
I would make with this a Cheater's Old Fashioned and be thrilled. Take a couple Luxardo cherries, drop them down in this neat, and be happy all evening long. So speaking of being happy all evening long, let's rate this on the Morse Whiskey rating code, and let's play What Would You Pay for the What Would You Pay Championship Belt Chain presented by Box Drop of Lafayette. Renee, you gotta show it to the camera like the front of it. There we go. Thank you. Okay, so for those who are uninitiated to the show, the Morse Whiskey rating code. Red, I wouldn't drink it even if it was free. Yellow, I would only drink it if it was free. Green, I would buy this. Blue, I would seek this out. And for the What Would You Pay Championship Belt Chain, we just award the belt chain presented by Box Drop to whoever gets closest to the actual price. But the real question is, would you pay more than this bottle actually costs? So Renee, let's start with you because I think you're going to rate this as a donkey whiskey and you're going to underpay for it, so we know what to expect.
No, I wouldn't put it donkey whiskey, but it's gonna be a yellow for me.
Okay.
I mean, it's drinkable.
drink it.
I drink it. I did. And I just got a sample of last week's. I think I like that one better than this
Okay.
week's
Well, it's a
because
lower proof.
It's a lower proof. It's a little bit sweeter to me. I would put this one at about 65.
$65 and a yellow. Let's not go to the bar. Let's go to Walker. Walker, I'm curious. What would you pay and where do you rate this on the Morse Whiskey rating code?
Pay 75, and I'll give it a blue.
75 and a blue. All right, back to the bar. Grant, where do you rate this on the Morse Whiskey rating code and what would you pay?
Checks too many in my boxes. I'm going to blue this as well.
Okay.
I'm about to taste the one from last week. I kind of like that they call it Buzzard's Roost because I could see myself at the end of the night laying flat on my back in my backyard.
With buzzards over you.
looking for buzzards. So it's a blue for me, and I'm going to split these two guys and go right at $70.
Right at 70. All right. To the tan, the myth, the legend, just to make him happy. All right, Caleb.
I'm torn. Like I was in my head earlier, I was thinking about pricing. I'm like, oh, $74.99. And Walker's like 75. And I was like, you know what? Screw that. $70.
And then Grant takes 70.
Screw that. I'm going to do $77. I'll write that in my book.
Okay.
Man, I really want to give it a green. I really want to. And I'm on my second glass, trying not to finish it and trying to convince myself to try the one from last week when I want this one again. So it's a blue. No matter what I want to tell you, it is 100% a blue.
Renee didn't just squirrel, he squirreled badly. Like this is not getting a green from anyone on the show. This is getting a blue from everyone except Renee, who gave it a yellow.
My taste buds are messed up.
Well,
They got
that's
to be
possible.
readjusted.
That's possible. And the What Would You Pay Championship Belt Chain presented by Box Drop of Lafayette. You guys were all over the target on this one. This is a 73.49 bottle of whiskey, which means that by a hair on his chinny chin chin or his nasty upper lip, Walker Griffon is the winner at $75 because, man, all over this. We don't have an age statement on this one, so we couldn't guess, $10 by year, but we do know, since you said it's a Kentucky straight, it's got to be 5 or 6. What a fantastic offering from Buzzard's Roost. My recommendation is if you see it, buy it. If you find it, get it. You will thank us later. What's the saying? And we'll come back because there's a saying from a movie about believe me once and thank me twice later. You'll enjoy this one as a great whiskey. Stick around. More Implicit Bias Radio, solving the problems of the world right after this. It is chaos in the top secret podcast layer this week on Implicit Bias Radio. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon, and yes, we are coming to you from the Mr. Lester's TSPL somewhere in downtown Lafayette, Louisiana. Let me introduce you to the crew here very quickly. At the bar, we have K&B. He is known as Kennebra, Grant Galatas of William S. Nacoll Jewelers. He is Louisiana's only certified master tobacconist, Rene Girard. He's actually one of only 15 in the world, but don't tell him that it's impressive because then he won't get in here anymore because his head won't fit through the door. Then we've also got Walker in the corner. We've got the Rustic Renegade. Go ahead, Caleb. You can say your nickname because we know how much you like it.
No, I'm gonna let Bruce say it.
Bruce. He doesn't like that nickname. It's all right, though, because he's wearing the What Would You Pay Championship belt chain. We'll get him the earring. It'll be just fine. When I said it is chaos here in the TSPL, every now and then we get a quickening on the show. We get a convergence of things that we somehow just start to talk about, and then all of a sudden it kind of becomes a thing. No idea. Had no clue that Netflix was creating a documentary out of the book Chaos. But oh my goodness, we had started talking about some things that we had seen in the book here on the show. If you want to catch some of those previous episodes, find us wherever you get podcasts, YouTube, X, Instagram, Facebook, they're all there. But the documentary hit Netflix in like the last week. So I want to start here for those that got a chance to see it. I know that Grant watched it. Renee, you watched it. So I don't think you read the book. Grant and I have the advantage of reading the book. So we'll start with you, Renee. What were your thoughts? And let me give kind of some background for those who don't know what the book is about. The book started as an investigation into the Manson murders. And where the author found himself after years of investigation was conversations with LAPD, conversations with FBI, conversations with the CIA, conversations at Cal Berkeley, conversations in the Haight-Ashbury, just places, Hollywood, connections where you never would have thought this murder might have been connected or these murders might have been connected. So Renee, your initial thoughts.
Yeah, the guy did a lot of investigation, talked to the prosecutor, who was selling his book.
Vincent Bugliosi,
Yeah.
who is famous for Helter
Helter
Skelter, the book. Yeah.
And that's one of the prisoners that was kind of loosely tied in. They were interviewing him, and he's basically said that the prosecutor was just selling his book. They weren't able to.
Oh, Bobby Beausoleil
Yeah.
was a murderer who was
Right.
part of the family.
Right. Well,
He
kind of,
was.
sort of. He wasn't one of
was-
the main members.
He
but-
was not affiliated with the murders that everybody knew.
right
the
because
Tate murders.
he was in jail the day before the Tate murders happened. So
Correct.
he wasn't. But he just said that the prosecutor was trying to sell his book, and it was obvious in the trial. But one of the things that I picked up out of it was that Manson was evil.
Absolutely.
He was crazy. And the drugs that they gave him and he took didn't help either one of them very much. You know, and they said how charismatic he was of a person. So obviously the rest of the family were very easy to convert. They didn't have anything going on. And it's amazing what you can do with brainwashing.
Okay, so we'll stop there and go to Caleb, because I'm curious as to what you pulled out of it.
So I haven't watched it. I've seen like the previews, and I want to watch it. It's on my
Okay.
to-do list. But what I do know about it, and I don't want to call it brainwashing, but it's the subtle influence, and subtle influence is all it takes, right? And when you look at things like, one of the questions they pose is, how did they convince people that this killing was okay?
How did they take normal people
Right.
and convince them to be brutal murderers without batting an eye? That's a big question.
Right. And it all starts with subtle influence. You know, when we look at disconnection or mechanical connection, right now, people watching us on camera have a mechanical view of us,
Fair.
and they get to feel some sense of connection to us. To the people on this side of the camera who are just looking at a camera, we're disconnected from the viewer because we don't see a viewer we
Or the
see a
listener
camera.
on
Or
radio,
the listener,
yeah.
And when you get into shooting, right? We talk about long range shooting, that kind of stuff. Hunting, if you do it with a bow, is very different than a rifle. If you do it with an optic, it's very different. Mechanical separation. We look at shooting and killing ratios in the wars and so forth. So subtle influence and small nuances make a huge difference. And that's why I don't necessarily want to call it brainwashing versus influence.
So we're going to go to Grant here in just a minute, but I think
Okay.
it's a great idea that you've brought up, which is there's that concept of, and I'm not a contract killer. There's a movie that talks about it though, where the contract killer says you start with a sniper rifle, then you graduate to a pistol, then you graduate to a knife, because the closer you get, the more personal it becomes.
Much more intimate is the
Well,
the
So, but here's the thing. You got to think that the Tate murders, even the Bobby Beausoleil murders, they were all hand to hand. They were all knives, right? They were all very, very intimate.
And when we look at murder weapons, right? A knife. I don't know if I can say this word on the radio. I won't say it. A knife is very, we'll use intimate, because you feel everything as it happens. You feel the penetration, you feel the blood, you feel the pulse, you feel the life.
I don't
and
want
you-
to ask how you know this.
You experience the passing of the human being, right? It's a very, very intimate thing. So it's difficult. Let's just look at hunting, right? We go out and we do pig hunting, and you stab a pig with a knife. Most people poke a pig. They don't stab it. Very, very few people are able to capitalize on momentum, location, and kill a pig quickly and easily with a knife. It's very, very difficult for the average person. And when we take people out to do that, you see that. It takes a special kind of person, or it takes a special kind of influence to convince someone or educate someone on how to do it.
Okay.
Well, I mean, to start with, y'all were talking about how you take normal people and convince them. I'm not sure these people were normal.
So
Because, I mean, you're talking about Haight-Ashbury area, and they
So-
were already tainted. And then you got to remember Lynette Squeaky Fromm, who was a member of the family, tried to assassinate Ford. We're talking 10 years later almost.
So Granted, the people who were there were certainly influenceable. Now, this is where I want to go to Grant. So, Grant, you and I have both read the book on top of watching the documentary. I'm curious as to your thoughts on the documentary and what the focus was of the documentary in light of the conversation you just heard.
Well, first of all, to address the players in all of this, you're talking about a bunch of 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old young women.
They're kids.
They're children, they're indigent, they're homeless, they're runaways. Susceptible completely to somebody. You know what's crazy is even after reading the book and watching the documentary, all of a sudden it popped into my mind. It's along the lines of a David Koresh.
Yes.
Almost. Or even Jim Jones drags 1,000 people down into the jungles of Guyana.
Yep.
And convinces them to drink the
poison
Kool-Aid.
Kool-Aid. Yep.
So there is a certain, I hate to call it charisma, because charisma should be associated with someone who, has charm and is, but when it's such a sinister thing that they're doing, it doesn't surprise me. The thing that I thought about this time was Tex Watson was such an important variable in this.
Yes.
Because just from reading the book and a documentary, Terry Melcher used to live at 10050 Cielo Drive.
So for those who
which
don't
is
know,
where the murders took place.
and for those who don't know who that is, he was a record producer who
Correct.
produced the Beach Boys, who Charlie Manson lived with.
Yeah, and he
for
went
a while.
and Charlie Manson got a visit from Melcher, and Melcher said, your music's good and everything, but I don't have anywhere to put you. So they tried to spin this, and that's the problem with this story. There's just so many different rabbit holes that this runs off to, which screams to me, oh, that's exactly what the CIA wants. They want so many different threads to it that once you start pulling on it, it all gets tangled up, just like the JFK assassination. So reading the book, and the thing, another thing that strikes me is with the CIA, they want this kind of thing to confuse you. There's no way we can ever completely untangle it. A lot of the players are dead. Bugliosi, he sold the book and he made millions from his book. He really did.
Yeah, he did.
And that's that works in favor of the CIA.
So
Follow that thread, as opposed to this was. Because, like we talked about, Jolly West was in Haight-Ashbury. Charles Manson brought all of his girl followers because they were sleeping with everyone.
There's the name, Jolly West. We're
Yeah.
going to go into that in a minute.
Jolly West. And he was in Haight-Ashbury when Charlie was bringing all of the girls to be treated for STDs.
So
The fact that they were in the same building.
So let me connect. Let me connect dots here, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Because here's the one problem that the author of Chaos had, and he said it. He said, I was never able to connect solidly Charles Manson and Dr. Jolly West.
Couldn't put them in the same room.
Let me start with who Dr. Jolly West is. Dr. Jolly West, by his own admission and by communications that were, some of them highlighted in the documentary, if you read the book, it's all there. All the citations are there. Everything is there. Jolly West was communicating with the director of the CIA. They were both using aliases to do it, but they were communicating directly. The CIA was funding Jolly West.
And that was for MK Ultra, wasn't it?
So part of it was MK Ultra, yes. So what you've got the CIA funding psychedelic experiments in an effort to have a psychiatrist either implant memories, or MK Ultra was designed to create a normal human being who would kill at the drop of a hat without question. That was the quest of MK Ultra. And they didn't spend a ton of time in the documentary on Jolly West. Jolly West, though, the one thing they did connect, and I'd forgotten about this reading the book, was that Jolly West was connected to Jack Ruby. Jack Ruby was set to testify to the Warren Commission. The day before he goes to testify, Jolly West shows up, talks to Jack Ruby, comes out and says he had a psychotic breakdown in the last 24 hours. He's not testifying.
On camera.
On camera, he says it.
Yeah, that's what surprised me about the documentary. He was right there because I had never heard that angle before.
But here's the real scary part of this. And this is what the documentary touched on, but never actually showed it. The book, you can see it. Freedom of Information Act request. communication from Dr. Jolly West to the acting director of the CIA. And he says, I have succeeded in successfully implanting memories into a human being that did not happen. So hold on a minute here. So what you're telling me is that you have a doctor connected to the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic where Charles Manson was known to hang out. All of his girls were going to get rid of all the venereal disease from all the people that Charlie was telling them to sleep with, including the drummer from the Beach Boys. Again, well documented in the book. Please don't believe me. Go read the book. And Jolly West at the clinic at the same time. And you have basically the exact results that the CIA was looking for with Project MK Ultra pop up, and all of a sudden Jolly West goes, he's gone from that area.
Read The Manchurian Candidate as well.
I mean,
Another good book. And Tom O'Neill is the author.
Tom O'Neill, yes, thank you.
Yeah, but look, that's too many coincidences. You start to have that much smoke.
Well, yeah, and I think it's not. You're right.
ties together
It's
nice.
too many coincidences because at one point everything has to converge, right? When we talk about MK Ultra, where they're trying to link up and take normal people, they're trying to find not necessarily normal. They're trying to find susceptible people.
And hopefully you're not susceptible to leaving this show because Walker is giving me the 1 minute finger from the corner. We might think that he's trying to experiment on us with psychedelics and brainwashing and all this. Hopefully you, though, will stick around and come back for the next segment. Final segment of hour one of this week's episode of Implicit Bias. Final segment of hour one of this week's episode of Implicit Bias. I am your host, Kavan Bordelon. Great crew here in the Mr. Lester's top secret podcast lair. And by the way, if you are making your way to Louisiana's only 5-star restaurant between New Orleans and Houston, you are catching them on a fantastic month. It is $5 pour month all during March. So the Heaven Hill Grain to Glass series, $5 a pour, $15 for the flight. These are $130-ish bottles as a ballpark. To get a pour for $5 is just insane. So head down there, get some pours, enjoy it, have a stogie. You can sit in the Mr. Lester's Cigar Lounge, the only restaurant in Louisiana where you can smoke a cigar. You can get a cigar that came from Piper's Haven because Piper's Haven is taking care of that supply as well. You can have the full Implicit Bias experience at Mr. Lester Steakhouse down at Cypress Bayou Casino. Okay, so gents, here in the TSPL, we were having the conversation about the book Chaos. Tom O'Neill, they just made a documentary on Netflix. I think there's an additional step to all of this because the letter from Jolly West, where he claims to have achieved the holy grail of MK Ultra, which is implanting memories that did not happen into a healthy subject and having that person recall that memory as if it actually happened to them and have no recollection that he implanted it. I have to wonder if we have not seen candidates like this raise their head in American society very publicly in the last 20, 30 years. I mean, 1969 was the year of the Tate murders and the LaBianca murders, which were the Helter Skelter murders. So 1969, we are 26 years later, almost.
No, you're talking almost 60 years later.
Oh, I'm sorry.
50,
yes. Yeah,
50 something years later.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My math is off in my head.
I was wondering. I was like, wait, my mother was
That's
born.
55.
Yeah, it's
56
56 years. 56 years. I don't know why my math was off. Thank you, Renee, for correcting me.
Walker, 56 years is more than 2.
Yeah. So, and this is a big if, but if Jolly West was able to accomplish this, and Jolly West was not only associated with Jack Ruby, Jolly West also was associated with, Grant, you know.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Jolly West. Who else publicly?
Other than Jack Ruby?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Timothy McVeigh.
Oh, and that one I didn't know.
I didn't know that.
Same scenario.
No, I did not.
Same
He's
scenario.
still in the service?
Oh, no. Jolly West is now passed.
Don't flies just love
But Timothy McVeigh, when he allegedly
That was 20
bombed.
years ago. That was
Correct.
20 years ago.
Bombed the Oklahoma City courthouse, right? But here's my question. If Jolly West was able to accomplish this, we have seen very notably people who go and testify about things that, as the investigation really gets underneath it, never happened. And they testify about it as if, in their mind, it unequivocally happened.
I love how you did that.
So,
He's leading us somewhere. I can't think of who you're talking. Who specifically are you thinking?
well, so let me think about.
It's not hitting.
So hold on. So let's see. The first woman that jumps out to me was who had this happen was Anita Thomas. Anita Hill. The second one,
Clarence Thomas's
accuser.
Yeah.
The next one that was really a big deal happened to Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh when another accuser who claimed that these things happened, and then all of a sudden people were like, no, this party never happened. I've never been to any of this, right?
And she was also a psychiatrist.
And then in the last 2 years, you had someone who accused a presidential candidate of something where they couldn't even put him in the same building together, E. Jean Carroll. Notice, all of these, much like the Manson family, majority female. Somewhat in a state of, because E. Jean Carroll claims to have had issues with more than just one. She has accused 6 men. Please don't believe us on this. E. Jean Carroll has accused multiple men of what she accused Donald Trump of. And Anita Hill, if you remember, basically pulled her accusation straight out of a book. Because there was the comment about a hair from the human body from a certain area found on a Coke can that he allegedly put, and you actually had a sitting congressman on the Senate review, or a sitting senator on the review panel, read the chapter of the book and go, it's really odd that this is exactly the same as the book.
You see, now that's a little easier to swallow, because planting thoughts in people's head is definitely a lot easier. That was the big thing with MK Ultra. They never could successfully get somebody to actually perform an act that they could motivationally suppress and forget about altogether, like in the Manchurian Candidate. But any garden variety nightclub hypnosis guy can put you under hypnosis and have you do certain things. So recalling a story is definitely a far cry less sinister than getting someone to kill someone and just completely forgetting the act.
I'm glad you brought that one up too, because I forgot Jolly West, one of his specialties was hypnosis.
And see, that's where...
So you're talking hypnosis, psychedelics, experiment with brainwashing, and
through,
funded by the CIA. Through, by the way, U.S. grants going to universities that were going to places where they weren't supposed to. USAID. I'm sorry.
Oh, imagine that. Have you ever had anyone try to hypnotize you before?
No, I have not.
Anyone?
At least not that I know.
Well, valid. Very well said. So I had a soldier of mine. Well, that's a lie. A soldier that I served with was big into hypnosis, and he tried. And you have to commit as the hypnotee. We use that term. You have to commit to allow yourself to be open and submissive to their influence, just like with all this other stuff. Or if you don't commit or submit, you have to have that part of your personality where you're yielding and forgiving for them to be able to influence you and impart their will upon you. There's a comedian that I know, good guy. Well, I say good guy, good comedian, funny guy.
And not funny like ha-ha funny,
Yeah.
funny like funny.
Yeah, and he's a hypno-comedian, and he does that. And I've seen him try to hypnotize people and so forth, and sometimes it fails, but they have to be susceptible to the hypnotism.
Which circles everything back to what Renee
Yes.
said, where you're talking about indigent,
Yes.
young, impressionable, family problems, runaways. There's a psycho.
Lots of
There's
drugs.
a recipe.
Yeah.
There's a recipe to this.
That's why they're hand selected.
Which, but well, Grant, you got to talk into the microphone so people can hear you.
That's why they're hand selected. You target the people that you want to use for this, and Caleb's absolutely correct. Even with the hypnosis, you have to be susceptible. You have to be willing, because if you get up on that stage for a hypnotist and you just have it in your head, I'm not going to let this get through. It won't.
And look, this is pure conjecture on our part. This is speculation.
But it makes you look at like the tryouts, going through and being a groupie and so forth. Like, there's a selection process to this that has been discussed but not discussed. It's pretty interesting.
There, to me, is too much smoke for there not to be, at the very least, a burning ember here somewhere.
It was the beautiful cover story, because on the scene of the murders, the whole thing was Charles Manson wanted to trigger a race war.
Correct.
And so at the scene of the murders, the first murder, they even put a paw print in blood on the wall, trying to tie it to the Black Panthers.
Yep.
In every other murder site, it was death to pigs and all of this stuff, making it look like, anti-establishment, anti-police. Obviously somebody trying to kick off a race war. So it plays into the narrative of a perfect cover for what the CIA was trying to do and just conducting their experiments.
Well, back up a second, because I don't know if you just realized what you just said and the dot that you potentially just connected. So what you're
second glass.
So what you're telling me is that someone wanted to pit Americans against each other in order to create very specific division in the country, and they might have attempted to use hypnosis, psychedelics, brainwash.
January 6th.
I coughed. Though I have a head cold.
Oh, God bless you. I thought you sneezed.
Yeah.
But therein lies the point. I mean, this is the big question, which is, are we, everyday average Americans, are we the lab rats on a massive psyop? Are we being influenced to combat each other, to be at each other's throats, to create conflict so certain people can run things the way they want it? Maybe not, but it's our implicit bias. Stick around. If you don't get hour 2, call your radio station, let them know, hey, we want hour 2 of implicit bias. We'd love to have you back. If not, find us on our socials. Wherever you get podcasts, hour 2 will be more fun, we promise. Hour 2 is always more fun on any episode of Implicit Bias. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon. We're coming to you from the Mr. Lester's top secret podcast lair located somewhere in downtown Lafayette. We got a great crew here in the TSPL this week. We have, I can't believe I'm going to do this, the Tan, the Myth, the Legend, Caleb Morse.
Yes!
Hour 2.
A Tug, please tell me you got that, because that needs to be.
I didn't even flex. I should do that better.
That is a bad meme. Somewhere that is a bad meme. At the bar, we have Grant Galatas. He is K&B of William S. Nacall Jewelers, but yeah, it stands for K&B, like the old school New Orleans drugstore K&B, or Kennebra, which is where he's from.
It was based out of NOLA?
Oh yeah. K&B?
Really?
Absolutely. Yeah. The purple and white? Uh-huh.
I didn't know.
Oh, whoa. Say, Grant, you got to say that into the microphone, because that's when everybody will learn.
Cats and best off.
Is that what it stood for?
Yeah. Absolutely.
There you go. See, Grant
purple
knows.
and white, baby.
Purple and white.
I remember going there all the time.
Age.
That was the first place I think I was told to put a buggy away.
When downtown New Orleans, one of the big tall buildings used to have a big K&B. That was their headquarters.
There was the K&B building,
I was
correct.
right. And wasn't it by
the street with the
street
name?
with the St. Charles.
Yeah.
It was around the Lee Circle area.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I want to say
I don't think the sign's there anymore. I think one of the hurricanes blew it off, but I remember going there for a long time.
K&B has been gone for a while.
Well, yeah, but there's a lot of things that have been gone for a while that's still in New Orleans.
No, this is true. This is true. This is true. I've got a really bad joke there, and I just can't say it. Oh, my goodness. It's nothing a shot won't fix. Stop. I got to. Okay. That is also the voice of Louisiana's only certified master tobacconist. He is Rene Girard. So let's start here. Rene, I got a bone to pick with you.
Uh-oh. Why? What?
No, look.
What did I do?
Rene was so incredibly kind. So on our last trip to Mr. Lester's, I had said, you know what, Rene, you gave such a beautiful description of that cigar. I would like to try one. But Rene knows that I am not an avid cigar smoker.
No,
I am not even a novice cigar
you smoke
smoker.
cigars like I drink whiskey.
Oh no.
No,
I
they're
don't smoke
giving
that
him
many
leeway.
cigars. Yeah, I don't smoke that many cigars. And I am so wet behind the ears when it comes to cigars, it's not even funny. So Renee brings some cigars to Mr.
Yeah,
Lester's, and you were really kind because you know that if I'm going to smoke one, I like a Robusto.
Yes.
He knows what I like. So he gives me a Robusto of which cigar was it, Renee?
It was the Perdomo 30th Sundrome.
Yes. So I am sitting next to Caleb and we light cigars. And I took my first puff and I was like, this is a little strong. And I hear Caleb go, oh, Renee, this is a little spicy. And I'm like, thank God it's not just me. If Caleb thinks it's spicy, who smokes a lot of cigars.
It paired well.
It goes great with whiskey.
It does.
Paired well with what we were drinking.
Yes.
But whew, yeah, that,
Well, you're not going to like this much cigar either then.
well, that, look,
And look,
it's not for me. It's for people who
I
really
knew it
like
was the
cigars
perfect-
a lot.
I knew it was the perfect cigar when the next day when we talked and you were like, hello, Caleb.
Yeah, he had that bass in his voice.
Smelled like it felt like a small pachyderm had relieved itself into my mouth the next morning. Yeah, it was a cigar all the way around. All right, Renee. So the cigar of the month this month, though, for our cigar aficionados out there.
It's a Room 101 15th anniversary. They
Okay.
came out every year. Matt Booth, who's the owner of Room 101, he comes out with the anniversary series. So it's a one and done. They're doing 40,000 cigars, which is 20,000 boxes. 20,000 boxes. And that's it. No more. And you have to be a
Wait.
Room 101 dealer.
You said there's 40,000 cigars.
Yes.
So there's 2 cigars to a box.
No. Okay. It's
Okay,
the other
so
way. 2,000
yeah,
boxes.
I'm helping you with math
Yes.
this time. You helped
Yes.
me with math in
I don't-
hour 1. I'm
I
helping
don't
you with
do
math in
too
hour
good.
2. It's okay.
Yeah, it's 2,000 boxes. But you have to be a Room 101 dealer, and
Okay.
we're the Room 101 dealer in Lafayette. So we're the only one in South Louisiana that's going to get them, other than New Orleans. I think New Orleans is going to get some.
Okay.
But I only have 3 boxes coming, so that's 60 cigars is all I got. And you're talking about a little less than $17. They should be hitting me today or tomorrow.
So for
So-
those who are listening, that
Yes, you
if
got
you're
about a
catching us-
week.
If
The
you're
day
catching us on,
before or the day of.
if you're
Yes.
catching us on podcast, you get it early. If you're
Yes.
listening on terrestrial radio or if you're watching on video, you're behind the curve.
Right.
So make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast to get news like this.
Yeah, and even be quicker because I'm sure there's a nice short list of your favorites
Nope.
who are going to get some.
No, that's one of the things I don't play.
He doesn't do that.
I
No,
don't
that's
do
great.
that. When they come in, I'll post it on my Facebook, and there's no limit. Come and get it, but it's local sales only because I don't want it. I get calls from around the country when I post about, can you? No, it's local. I keep my cigars local for our people
I
around
love
here.
that about you, Renee, because like you'll post it and you're like, Caleb doesn't check social media. And you text me and you're like, be here, otherwise you're
They're
screwed.
gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got the money, they go.
So what's the flavor profile on this cigar that
It's-
makes it so special and
Well,
so
it's
wanted?
it's going to be more of a medium bodied. Probably,
wheelhouse.
yeah. No, it's going to be too strong. This is a Nicaraguan puro, which means all the tobaccos come from Nicaragua.
Are you sure that sounded like a curse word in Nicaragua?
No, puro. Puro is
There's
pure.
a two in the other one.
Yeah, and it's AJ Fernandez that makes this cigar. He's made the last 7 anniversary cigars for Matt Booth. It's just a great cigar. And Matt Booth, if you're in the cigar world, you kind of know of Matt Booth. He's more of a jewelry guy, but he's been doing cigars now for 20 years. He's had his own brand for 20 years in cigars.
What kind of jewelry? Like chastity belts or
He does rings and bracelets and Matt's a unique guy. He's a Marine, so I don't know what color he likes.
Oh, he
but-
likes the color yut.
Yeah, I don't know what color he likes, but he's a Marine. But he's a great guy.
So I'm glad to hear that you've got these, Renee. It sounds like it's a great cigar, but again, short supply.
Oh yeah, 60 cigars is all I got. There is no more because all the boxes have been allocated.
Speaking of short supply, we were touching upon the statement from the Distillers Association of Kentucky last week with regards to tariffs and American whiskey being shipped into Ottawa and Ontario and all the problems that we were running into there. And I want to give a shout out to somebody who hasn't reached out to us in a while, but he was kind enough to come on the show. John Rich of Redneck Riviera. And this really kind of hit me in the feels as I was thinking, so Canadians are taking American tariffs awfully personal. Much like Sonny would say, this is business. He's taking this very, very personal, Tom. They're taking it very, very personal. To the point where an economic tariff was being met with life-threatening electricity cutoffs in the northern United States. So, in light of what the Canadians want to do to attempt to kill Americans over money, I think the very least we can do is give John Rich and Redneck Riviera any potential purchase that you were going to give to a Canadian whiskey. That's what I think we can do.
That's his thing, is he wanted to have the similar flavor profile as, when it won't say it, but it's got a purple bag. And he came out with a really, really solid whiskey to that. And then I think the Granny Rich is the one to go with.
I agree.
And the price point is even better. So this is a great way to go through and get something that's got a better flavor profile at a better price that's not being taxed and tariffed. And when we look at what's going on, what they're doing, the tariffs are supposed to be reciprocal, right? They do this much, we do this much. And what we learned is that they were putting tariffs on eggs, milk, other agricultural
dairy,
products,
meat, all car,
250, 275%, where we weren't doing that to them. So
here's the
what's
deal.
good for the goose? What do they call
Is
it?
good for the gander.
Yeah, but I want to try to say it in a Canadian accent. I don't know how to do that.
Geese, eh? Hoser.
Yeah, that works better for me. Yeah, he did it.
Two bowls of split pea soup to go, eh? Anyway, Renee.
Well, and John's whiskey, it's a blended whiskey, but it's American-made
Yes.
whiskey.
So is that whiskey that comes from north of the border. That's a blend.
Yes. Oh,
Right?
yeah.
It's a blend.
All of the
There's
Canadian whiskeys are blended.
No, there's only one Canadian whiskey that I'm upset about.
I know.
Oh, yeah. Our favorite.
But I will substitute that for some Granny Rich.
And look,
it's not the same,
We are not.
but I will make that sacrifice.
We will talk about products that we find near and dear. If we like something, we'll tell you. We're just that way. But at the very least, there are too many
There
American
are.
whiskey options
Yeah.
to buy anything that is just a blended whiskey from outside of the country.
Well, and the Canadians, what they've done is they've just flat stopped bringing any American whiskeys into Canada.
Agreed.
That's their boycott. They're boycotting American whiskeys altogether.
Secondary market's about to get hit.
I
baby.
say we should do the same.
You know, here's what I would actually like us to do. I would like us to make sure that we know who's behind all of these names, because I believe that purple bag is also owned by a family that
It's
owns
owned by a
brand.
company that starts with an S.
Yes, and they are
Yeah.
owned by a family with the last name Bronfman. Their family has been implicated in some really nasty stuff if you go look at that last name, and a cult called Nexum, NIXVM, which it's actually, it looks like Roman numerals, but that whole scenario and heiress to the Bronfman family and all that stuff. And please don't believe us on this. Please go look all this up. I think it's a really interesting tie. Just know who you're supporting.
Yeah.
Know who you're supporting. Know what you're buying. Know who you're buying it from. It's all we ask. If you have the chance to buy American, buy American. It just makes sense to me.
Yeah, you don't pay tariffs that way.
Well, and this is that conversation. And I actually sent this out because I talked on the last show about the belief that, I think, personal opinion, I think he wants the economy to crash. I think our current president is trying to drive things not necessarily completely into the ground, but he's got to create some deflation of the economy. And we have now seen in some reports that eggs are at like a 62-week low.
Gas
Eggs have
is
dropped.
down.
Gas has come down. Inflation, as was reported, please don't believe us, by CNN, that great bastion of conservative reporting, by CNN, at 0%. If you take out food and drugs, it's negative. I am of the belief that maybe there's a strategy here with tariffs to drive things down so that he can refinance debt at a lower rate, because when you drive and create deflation, interest rates typically come down as opposed to interest rates going up to
Right.
drive, cash lending and things of that nature. And at the end of the day, essentially what is happening, because when you drive down inflation, you get almost a redistribution of wealth. Because all the wealth that was in the stock market, which is crashing.
Wait, isn't that what the Tea Party wanted to do? They wanted to redistribute wealth by taxing the rich and giving it to the poor.
Okay, but you can't.
But what Trump wants to do is everybody gets distributed.
Make everything at the top crash out. So
Yes.
all those dollars, all those big funds that were invested because could make more money in the stock market than make in other avenues,
Right.
now will drive to a different investment platform. So the different investment platform actually allows the American worker to see what happened. Now, if we've got all these tariffs and we've got all these foreign products that are getting more expensive, what's going to happen? The same thing we talked about with American whiskey. People are going to stop buying foreign products and going to start buying American.
Well,
so
that and
American farmers,
manufacturers are starting to build in the United States again.
but follow me here. American farmers, instead of now exporting their product, they've got a glut of product they need to keep in the United States, which what does that do to food prices? Drives it
Goes
down. What does that do to energy prices as we start to see all of a sudden what's happening with the price of gas and the price of oil per barrel with where that's gone? Now, all of a sudden we see that comes down. So now we've got the price of gas coming down, which means we keep more in our pocket. The price of food comes down, which means we keep more in our pocket. The stock market has crashed, which means that the people who own the top percentages of the stock market, which I've seen some estimates somewhere around 8 to 10% of the wealth in the United States owns 80 to 90% of the stock market, 94, which is what Grant's telling me. Now, all of a sudden, they've had to cash out. They've had to reinvest in the country by investing in T-bills or commodities or something like that. And we get the benefit. That is a huge, huge chess move if that's what he's actually driving. But
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
kind of what's happening.
It's like the big chip manufacturer in Taiwan is
160 billion.
Yes, they've already committed to. They already were building a plant in Arizona area. They're increasing $100 billion. Honda decided, instead of building a plant in Mexico, to do Indiana to make their cars here.
Yep.
So manufacturers are already starting to build.
Grant, you wanted to chime in?
Yeah, I had to read it a couple of times, what you sent me. Trump is trying to crash the stock market at least 20%, causing a flight into treasuries. This will cause the Fed to slash interest rates so he can refinance the debt to nearly 0% and cause a deflationary spiral, which will lower the cost of everything. So basically, and one of the sayings that I love that you say is, we're all playing checkers and Trump is playing chess.
Yeah.
It's what we try to think
Basically.
about on this show.
And what's so bad about it is that half of this country could care less that he's trying to do this and make life better for us because he's the enemy.
Well, but
It's infuriating.
But you've got to understand why he's the enemy. He's the enemy because somebody told them that he was. They don't understand.
The wizard.
They don't understand what's happening with the numbers that we're talking about here.
Well, and
they don't
it's-
understand deflation.
And it still goes back to the point that a lot of people in Congress with D's behind their names are very scared because they're going to be exposed for the money that they've been skimming off of all the billions that USAID has been sending out and everything else.
We hope.
Well, if we really wanted to deflate, right? So, and when we look at this and trying to do the stock market, reduce it by 20%, all this other stuff. If we wanted to deflate the dollar, do y'all realize what the dollar is worth now to what it was worth in 1913 when the Fed was enacted?
It's worth 16 cents of essentially what it was worth. It has 16% of the 20 cents.
Yes.
16 to 20% of the buying power that it did.
Correct.
And that's the big thing. Got to understand buying power of the dollar.
So let's say we stop printing money now. And instead of recycling and printing new money, we cut it down and print a third of that. So now we're down to a third being printed. It would still take, in order to make the dollar worth a dollar again, it would take 4 to 6 years of printing 1/3 of the money
Now you're going to get me into
to
a
make the
conversation.
dollar worth a dollar.
But it's not going to take that long.
No, it won't.
You knew where you were going with this, didn't you?
I'm trying to
Because
set you
I
up.
don't want to go here on this necessary.
Okay, we can
until
wait that. We can
until
wait.
you upend the Fed, you go to a digital
You
transaction
mean until we
platform.
usurp the people that aren't the Fed is not the Fed. It's
No.
called the Fed because it's the Federal Reserve. It's not run by the federal government.
It's
a
the
private
Federal Reserve
entity,
Bank,
which is
which is a private entity. It's not a Federal Reserve.
People.
It's the Federal
People,
Reserve
not government.
Bank. Yes, you're saying it's people. Walker's saying it's 1 minute. I'm going to take both of those fingers. I'm going to turn them around and give them both back to you. And I'm going to tell you who's listening, watching, we're going to be right back. Hour 2 continues right here on Implicit Bias Radio. We are just losing our minds trying to get a little rest here in the Mr. Lester's Top Secret Podcast lair. That's the TSPL for the initiated. I'm Kevon Bordelon, your host, as Implicit Bias Radio is back on the air. We've got a great crew for you here this week. Walker hasn't been overly talkative. Walker, I mean, what basketball game are you watching? How much do you have money on it?
No, nothing right now.
Yeah, no, right now.
Well, Kentucky plays later, so we'll see.
There. I knew there was a game with a money line somewhere, and that's where you're spending the majority of your focus, isn't it?
I'm just reading the lines. They keep moving up and down.
Trying to find the right one. I get it. You know what? Look, as Eddie Murphy said to the Duke and Duke brothers, y'all just sound like a couple of bookies, right? Everybody is trying to play and figure out who the bookies are and where we can make some money and find the right money lines, including apparently right now, employees who are about to be former employees of USAID. I sent this article over to the crew here in the Mr. Lester's TSPL, whether it's the Rustic Renegade, whether it is Rene Girard, Louisiana's only certified master tobacconist, whether it is Grant Galatas. Politico reporting this. So you know it's true. Because you know they wouldn't report anything bad about people who don't like our current administration. And this is bad. I think this fits in with the whole tell me you're guilty without saying you're guilty. The administration has ordered a bunch of people at USAID to be fired. And the people in charge at USAID have, as a counterpunch or a counter move on the chessboard, instead of saying, oh yeah, well, no, they did actually say, we're going to try and sue and make you not fire us. And apparently that's not going to work. So now they are saying, fine, you're going to fire us. We're going to shred everything and run. And that's what they're doing.
Burn the evidence, sink the ships.
You know, they special ordered the shredders with indictment modes on them so they can super shred. You know, you see the shred trucks come to the banks and stuff to shred their documents. I'm sure there's a fleet of those showing up at USAID headquarters.
This is a story that I just cannot get over because, I mean, seriously, tell me you're guilty without saying, I did it. Shred everything.
But they're doing nothing illegal at this point, right? This is inter-office, just cleaning out, making some room in the file cabinet.
Okay, whoa.
Technically,
Hold on. Go back.
they're not doing anything. I mean, they got burn bags and they got
Nothing
they got
is
shredder.
illegal until you're caught.
Yeah.
You know, what's funny is how did this get out? Who leaked this? I guess someone who's.
Maybe Big Balls put it out there.
But yeah,
And that is not a lewd reference for
Yeah.
those who are. That is one of the Doge employees' handles on a social media platform. He is known by Big Balls.
the optic. Look,
Walker thinks that's funny.
yeah. but
Walker,
look, but
let me guess, Walker.
look,
Let me guess, Walker. You don't know Big Balls.
Look, it's BOLZ. Okay,
Yeah.
They mess with the spelling, but seriously, there's nothing illegal about this. The optics are just absolutely
Okay.
horrid.
Hold on.
No
So wait.
documents under subpoena. None of that stuff.
Oh,
There's
no, it doesn't matter. So here's the deal.
Federal documents.
Hold on. Number
Yeah,
one,
talk to Hillary.
as Renee
She's
said,
Hillary's the queen.
As Renee just said, it's federal documents. Number two, if I go murder someone and they don't find a body, and before they find the body eventually, I take the knife or the gun and I destroy it. If they then later find the body and then figure out that I destroyed the knife, I have destroyed evidence to a capital murder. In other words, if they are destroying evidence of crimes committed, that's where I look at this and go, oh,
I have friends of mine that are federal employees. Any email that is sent through their email system cannot be destroyed, which is why I still don't understand why Hillary's still walking around.
Oh, we got some news on that this week, but I'm not quite ready to go there. Haven't verified.
Any federal document cannot be destroyed because it belongs to the federal government, but it's also potential evidence or proof of other things. I had a friend of mine that years ago worked for a company that they built boats for the Navy. And they said, look, we have all these file cabinets. Can we destroy these files? These are boats that were built 30 years ago. Sure, you can destroy all of that evidence, but you have to make triplicate copies before you destroy it, which made sense, right? You know, Reduction in Paperwork Act. That's the way the government, you don't destroy anything.
Caleb, you want to chime in on this?
Well, no, I mean, that's how it's supposed to be. And then whenever they allowed us to do digital documents, you had to scan it, someone read it, sign off on it. Then someone signed off that they saw them read it. And that's how they reduced paperwork and destroyed all rainforests. But no matter what you do, in certain regulations, like I'm required to keep paperwork for 30 years was the original one. Well, now I'm required to keep it for the life of my business.
Oh, yeah, and when you
if I sell my business, I must mail all the documentation to Virginia.
Yep. So that brings about a big question for me here, which is I'm going to play devil's advocate. Is someone conflating the destruction of paper documents with destruction of evidence?
With going to digital.
As opposed to they went to digital with these documents and now they're shredding everything.
I don't believe that they went digital.
Well, here's the
because we still have a cave that they're doing retirements for the government by hand. So
look, it's here's what I do believe. What I do believe is no matter how much you try to destroy all the evidence, there's too much evidence out there. There's too much evidence of this money. There's too much money for there not to have been a paper trail, a la what we are now looking at with this $20 billion that got parked and some of it sent out to Stacey Abrams' environmental group right at the end of the Biden administration.
And it's just like the article, Politico, who is not pro
Oh, they are a left-leaning, which who, by the way, got USAID funds.
Right. And there in the article, they said that the upper management told everybody, show up now. We must do this now. And if we don't have enough shredder time, put it in burn bags and label it to be burned immediately. So that sounds like that's not a casual, oh, we digitize this, so we need to get rid of this. No, we need to hide this. We need to destroy this now before they find it.
And that's why I bring up let's play devil's advocate. Because we now get from the article that that's not what this is.
No.
This is not
it's an emergency
simple because I know how this is going to work. Somebody's going to listen, somebody's going to watch, and somebody's going to say, oh, they're lying. They're just destroying document. No, please read the article. We read it.
Yeah.
We went through it. And this is Politico,
There's
who was
urgency.
paid. Politico, who was paid by USAID to create content, is now writing an article about USAID shredding documents and not saying, oh, we're just shredding what we've digitized. We are calling people in to make sure that documents are destroyed.
Yep. Push it, rush it, make it happen.
Oh, I thought you were going to say push it. Push it real good. Yeah.
Bruce, that's when you jump in.
Come on, Bruce.
I love how he looked up to. He's like, I hate that nickname. Yeah.
And he is just sitting there on his phone while we record. That's what we need. We need the Walker cam to be just constantly in a small picture-in-picture box in the top so people can see Walker doing nothing for 90% of the show. What, Grant?
So back to the documents. So is it worse than everything that came out already? What could be more urgent than the billions and trillions of dollars that we've already seen with the transparency of Doge? You're saying that it's worse, that there's more documents that make it even that much more worse that we need to that they need to address and destroy that quickly?
So
it's worse than what we've seen already?
So I want to go through some numbers real quick. Tens, hundreds, thousands, 100,000s, millions. Well, then tens of millions, hundreds of millions,
then billions.
Billions, tens of billions, hundreds of billions, trillions.
$1 trillion is a lot to quantify.
Hold on, wait. Then you go tens of trillions. We are
Which is
1,000
million.
We are 36
No, it's 10,000 million.
trillion dollars in debt as a country. You mean to tell me that you think $20 billion that went out to a Stacey Abrams group in Atlanta so they could go put like 6 electric stoves into some homes and claim that this is going to have some great environmental impact is the only fraud we've seen out there? This is the tip of the iceberg. Somebody actually wrote a statistic that said you could spend like $2,500 a day and not spend enough money to run Elon Musk broke if you started the day Jesus was born. And I ran the math. It's not as far off as you would think. Like, it's crazy. It's hundreds of billions of dollars. It's not tens of trillions.
But since he started, he's lost $100 billion just of his own self-worth.
But my point isn't that how much he's worth. My point is how much money is $36 trillion to be in debt? What does that look like? And how many people have been just collecting money from the U.S. government? I mean, look, congrats Kash Patel, because we apparently have an arrest. He arrested a DOJ worker who was allegedly collecting fraudulent funds from the U.S. government. Good job. But it was like $20 million. It was a lot of money. It was enough money that I would have quit and run away so they never would have found it because they wouldn't have looked because I'd have retired.
Look, that was my question, though, because $20 million, the one I keep seeing in my head, is $20 million for a Sesame Street workshop in Iraq.
That's one.
Okay, so why all of a sudden the urgency to get these documents shredded and burned? Why did that memo not go out a month ago before all of this stuff started happening? What's the urgency with this now?
Well,
is there more? I mean, is there that much more?
So first of all,
I'm just questioning.
Here's my thought before we go to break. My thought is this. It's not just that there's more. My thought is this. A great negotiation tactic, a great military tactic is to create decision space for yourself. Give yourself time. So they come out with the $20 million for Sesame Street in Iraq. They come out with some of these small things. And they already know, okay, we're going to file lawsuits. We're going to go and get some lawfare. Maybe we come out of this. We're going to wait and see. Now maybe they realize, just like our listeners and our viewers realize, we're hooked. They got us. And they're going to come back and get us. Just like hour 2 of Implicit Bias is going to hang around and you're going to come back for the penultimate segment of this week's episode. It's a small world after all on this week's episode of Implicit Bias. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon, Implicit Bias Radio. Back on the air. If you missed any part of this episode, which trust me, you don't want to miss, go find us on any of our socials, X, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. You want to catch this episode. Maybe, just maybe, this segment will tell you the kind of stuff that we dig into. Yes, it is a very small world. As we come to you from the Mr. Lester's Top Secret podcast, they're located somewhere in Lafayette, Louisiana, we often find out that this area is connected to many major news stories. On September 11th, we found out that one of the alleged pilots actually went to school here at the local university. There was a boating incident here many years ago that had the president of RJR Reynolds at the time on the boat. It was a duck hunting boat, and it just so happens that turned out tragic with big names. But this is a location. Locations tend to do that when hundreds of thousands of people roll through it, and sometimes millions. One person being connected to multiple locations where strange things have happened kind of makes me wonder, what's the probability? What's the probability, Mr. Morse, that you might be in charge of a really major mass shooting? And then I say be in charge of the response to the mass shooting as law enforcement. And then still be in law enforcement and be in charge of the response to one of the largest wildfire disasters in the history of the United States by dollars. And then
a third.
hit the parlay. Walker, you know something about this. So this is the question. Walker, because I know
It's the
you
first time he's paid attention to
I
the whole
know
show.
you bet
He
these,
brought
Walker.
up the word parlay.
I know you bet these, Walker. If there was a parlay that said, I'm going to give you a name, and they're going to be the incident commander for a mass shooting, they're going to be in charge of the police department for one of the largest wildfire damages by dollar in United States history, and they are going to be named as a co-conspirator to the P. Diddy Dangler. What are the odds of hitting that trifecta, Walker? I mean, what does that payout look like? Is that like a 400 to 1, $507,000 to 1 payout?
That might be bigger. It might be.
That's probably like a $25,000 payout.
I mean, so and
No,
that's
you're
on a,
going to get paid. I mean, for those three,
If you go Las Vegas, Maui, and
Diddy.
Diddy floating Mardi Gras, man, those are.
See, I'm the pessimist of this. Some dudes just ain't very lucky.
Well, it's not even that. Like,
Things happen around him, and he just ain't lucky.
So the guy that we're talking about, what we were alluding to, is John Pelletier. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name.
not
I don't-
Pelche?
No, it's not Pelche.
Yeah.
It's not spelled as we spell Pelche around here. Was the incident commander.
He's Canadian.
He was the incident commander for the Las Vegas shooting, the Mandalay Bay incident, which we still don't really know the story around that because there's a lot of things that don't add up there.
That's because he left and went to Maui.
He then leaves and goes to Maui, where he is the incident commander, where now the DOJ is investigating a land grab.
well, and before you go further down the rabbit hole, let's look at it this way too. Like, how many jobs have you worked where somebody just sucked so bad that they transferred and they were like, you know what? We'll put him here because nothing will happen.
And then it does.
But here's the bigger part of this.
It does.
Because it's not just about sucking at your job. It's also about, I'm not making that joke. Diddy. It's also about,
Did he suck or did he?
I wasn't going to make the joke. You did.
I bit my tongue. I don't know if everyone saw it, but I literally did.
You made it more tastefully than I would have, to your credit. But therein lies, so wait a minute. So you're telling me that a guy who is connected to people in the circles of the P. Dangler, the Puff Daddy Me Done.
And that was before Las Vegas. He was involved with that before Las Vegas.
And this to me is why the whole thing's really suspicious. Because when you told me, it's the same guy, I'm like, really bad coincidence. When you start telling me the circles that he runs in and who he associates with, and he is associated now, he has been named in a lawsuit. That is all we have. We do not know that he is guilty of what P. Diddy Dang Dung did, right? But what we know through this association is potentially, and I say potentially, allegedly who he hangs out with. And when you start putting those people and those incidents together, we're producing music. It's just CMC Music Factory. Things that make you go, right? Yeah. I mean, that's what this is. I cannot get over the lack of probability of these things happening independently of each other. That's my problem.
I'm just convinced he's unlucky.
I'm not.
He's just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
If it had been, if he had been moved to San Diego and had another mass shooting, I would have said unlucky because those things are not, they are, some people believe,
but
random.
he's like the Maui thing. He's a policeman. He wasn't fighting the fire. He wasn't a fireman.
No, but you know what he was in charge of?
What?
Access to the property afterwards.
Immediate access.
Immediate access. And people were denied access to their property when you had, let's be honest, you had our president say the blue roof thing at the time.
Yeah.
I'm not saying. The president said it. You saw the pictures. Make up your mind for yourself.
Wow.
And this police chief was in charge of who had access to those areas immediately afterwards. He's the one who shut it down. He's the one who dictated, and look, not just immediate access, but who was allowed in and out via certain roads. And there are allegations that certain roads were shut down and people were not allowed to get out, and it caused deaths.
I mean, look, there's one thing to be incompetent and transferred. There's another to have it happen 3 times.
Well, no, incompetent and transferred twice, and then be
Okay, yeah.
connected to, I'm going to call it what it is, be connected to an elite sexual blackmail ring.
I mean, at that point in time,
That's-
you're being shielded.
Oh, that's a whole new word there. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just a whole new word. Because the question becomes, you
We can
said
all-
he was being shielded. Maybe he was doing some shielding.
Well, and normally, you protect those that protect you. So, if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, sounds like a duck,
Whack, whack.
it's a fish.
Yeah. Grant?
The only one I can't connect, and I watched so many videos on the Las Vegas shooting. I can't. It seems like that one's a little extraneous, but to be tied to 3 major significant events, you can tie in the Hawaii thing with the government tie-in. You can tie into the P. Diddy with his own sexual molestation case, the Vegas thing. But seriously, what are the odds that you're tied to 3 unbelievably huge stories?
So here's what I'm going to say. The Vegas thing,
That's a crazy connection.
the Vegas thing, there was royalty in Vegas that night.
That angle I didn't hear.
Oh,
Where?
yeah. Go
Where?
look that one up. Just
Yeah,
go look that one up.
This was, I mean, this has thrill kill written.
There
all
was-
over it. This guy wanted to go out in just an absolute.
So there are rabbit holes, which I can neither confirm nor deny. But what I can confirm is that there was royalty in Vegas that night, and
At the country music fest,
not
or
necessarily
just in another part of Vegas.
in another part of Vegas where accessibility from that particular hotel room might have been a thing, might not have been a thing. But you have to then go look up what happened in a major Middle Eastern country couple months, maybe a year later, with members of a royal family being picked up, arrested, locked in their hotels, locked in their homes, put under house arrest. Caleb, you're shaking your head over there.
I'm doing math. I'm doing like legitimate math.
Oh, yeah, no, you're not, because you can't spell.
No, this
much
is
less
great.
add.
So before I get down to the extra multiplying, it's 1 in 30,000 is the easy numbers to being in the proximity of a shooting, not
Much less a mass shooting. Correct.
not a mass shooting. I'm doing 1 in 30,000 are your odds. So you'll keep talking. I'm
Okay.
working down this.
Okay. But my point is, so there are alternate theories of why Las Vegas happened and what it actually was, as opposed to an intentional mass shooting of just concert goers for no reason.
I've heard nothing. I mean, it's
Well-
just like, it's a puff of smoke after the fact. You wonder, just like the Crooks kid in Pennsylvania.
Well,
We've heard nothing about
These are things we need to research, things that we all need to look into. We'll talk about it during the break, and we'll come back and do the final segment of this week's really fantastic, fun episode of Implicit Bias Radio. Signing our life away in the final segment of this week's episode of Implicit Bias. I am your host, Kavan Bordelon. Welcome into solving the problems of the world, 1 or maybe 5 or 6 weekly whiskeys at a time. Who knows at this point, but we're having fun. Here's the crew. The Tan, the Myth, the Legend, Caleb Morse. Grant Galatas of William S. Nacall Jewelers. Renee Girard of Piper's Haven. Walker in the corner, who's trying to figure out the parlay that he's got on the police chief of Vegas, and then the incident commander of Vegas and the police chief of Maui, and the same guy named in a Diddy lawsuit, which apparently you've got a 20 times better chance of winning the
200.
Powerball.
200 times.
It's just insane. Just insane. Okay. But I think that we still have a better chance of being that guy than we do of getting an authentic signature from Joe Biden.
Oh, I see what you did.
Oh, yeah, you like the segue
That
there?
was nice. That was good. Well done.
Because the auto pen is a thing.
Come on, T-Pain with his auto tune,
Yeah, no.
and Jay Biden. What was
No,
his
Joe,
rap name?
Joe was not on a boat.
Oh
right?
yeah. No, he fell down the airplane stairwell. So
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, he did.
No, he fell up. He fell up the airplane.
I still haven't done that. I've tried.
Okay. So here's the deal. I am not here to pick on Joe Biden. I could care less about Joe Biden. I wish him what I wish every other human being, which is to will the good of other for the sake of other, in spite of the things that I think he may have done wrong. What I do care about is something very different, which is auto pen a legal signature for things like, pardons, for things like executive orders, for things like signing bills that Congress submits to you into laws?
Well, I can tell you that electronic signature is not approved by banks on most documents over $50,000.
So I have done electronic signature on mortgages and things like that. But the question to me isn't electronic signature, but you can go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you look at that electronic signature where they can verify who it is, an auto pen, how do you verify an auto pen?
So-
I've never used that.
Yeah, because I mean, you could actually have an aide just come up and push the button,
Okay.
and it's signatures. You actually thought that Joe Biden signed 2,500 documents in the last 10 minutes before the.
So hold on, Renee. I love where you went with this, which is number one, for those who don't know what an auto pen is. And this is why I made the differential between an electronic signature and auto pen. E-signature is a document is sent to someone. They go in, they are able to securely verify that they are signing off on that document. That is legally binding today in the US for a lot of things. That is not auto pen. Auto pen is a machine. It follows how you would sign your signature and it mimics it perfectly. And then when you push a button, it reproduces said signature. So a lot of times when people get letters from presidents,
Yep.
it's signed by the auto pen machine.
Right.
It is not actually signed by the actual president of the United States. But they're authorized, an aide does it, and it's still a big deal to get it because not many people get it. But that's the difference between getting a letter from the president, allegedly, that is signed by auto pen, and a law or an executive order or a pardon that is signed by auto pen. Two very different things. So the question to me becomes, who pushed the button?
Yeah. I mean, most laws, I think they don't use auto pen. When Congress passes a law, the president signs. He physically signs it.
I know on the gubernatorial side of it, like I have witnessed our governor sign in Sharpie different bills to enact them into law. I have one at the shop. It's not the official one, but he signed it separately, right? So when we start talking about auto pen, like at that point in time, I really want to question the validity of that.
So I'm going to
Yeah,
give
because who has access to that machine?
I'm going to give some theories here. In the last 8 weeks, since January 20th, 2025, when we record this episode on March 13th of 2025, I have seen more video of a sitting president physically signing documents, I think, than every other president combined. And I believe there's a reason for that. I believe he is showing that to show I am physically signing this in front of a camera, as opposed to one of my aides hit an auto pen. Now we know from Speaker Mike Johnson, who's come out on camera and said, I talked to Joe Biden, asked him why he did something, and he said, I didn't do that. And he said, wait, here's the video of you doing it. He goes, I have no recollection of doing that. To people who said he's sharp as a tack, he's sharper than ever. To people who have now recognized that he was never there and he was non-compos mentee the whole time.
Wait,
Sharp as
was
a doorknob.
Jolly West around that?
Nope, Jolly West was not there. But follow the thought process.
Like you said, I don't even the day Joe Biden was inaugurated, I don't remember him signing any executive orders. Now, when Trump's first term, they have video of him signing. I saw that. His second term, same thing. They constantly showing him with his big specially made Sharpies that Sharpie makes for him to sign those orders with.
What I anticipate is we're going to hear more about this auto pen. And there's actually video out there that shows just how perfect every single signature matches up, which is if you are actually physically signing things, your signature is going to vary. It is not going to be perfect every single time. The only way it's perfect every single time is with a machine.
Yep.
So I think we're going to see more on the auto pen. I think we're going to see more about what was signed by auto pen.
But like you said, are those signatures valid?
I think there's a way to find out. I think people who are really smart, I don't have the time for this, will start comparing the presidential calendar when you know he was on vacation with dates that things were allegedly signed. And if Joe Biden was on vacation, which I think he at this point is the most vacationed president in the history of United States presidents.
Like 500 and something days?
Yes. If he's not there
in his term.
when it was signed, it's not valid. But you know what is valid? Implicit Bias Radio. The $5 weekly whiskey pours you can get at Mr. Lester Steakhouse. The weekly whiskeys that we've got from Buzzard's Roost, which are absolute blues here on the show, which is our highest rating. If you missed any of the show, go find us on YouTube, Instagram, X, Facebook. Find us wherever you get your podcasts, and whatever you do, don't miss your implicit bias. We'll see you in 7.